In tonight's news edition, Jordan urges world powers to help all Syrian parties to reach a political solution as the only way to end the conflict. International envoy Lakhdar Brahimi announces that the warring sides in Syria are prepared to discuss access for aid supplies, prisoner swaps, and local ceasefires. And the European Union threatens to take action against Ukraine over its handling of anti-government protests. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriate Affairs Nasser Joudeh emphasized a political solution to the crisis in Syria, a position Jordan had clearly expressed since the beginning of the conflict. Taking part in the International Conference on Syria in Montreux, Switzerland, he also urged world powers to help all Syrian parties to reach a political solution as it is the only way to end the crisis. Joudeh said Jordan is currently hosting more than 1 million Syrians, including nearly 600,000 who took refuge in the kingdom after the outbreak of the conflict 3 years ago. He said the cost of hosting Syrian refugees is estimated at about $1.8 billion annually. Joudeh said in his address that the conference is an opportunity that should not be wasted to put a political solution on track through the cessation of hostilities, to be followed by setting up an executive body where the entire Syrian spectrum is represented.
We in Jordan are the closest to the people of Syria due to geographical facts and social and family ties. So we are the most affected by what afflicts Syria and its people. Given this reality, we have accurate estimates of the situation, which enhanced our conviction that a political solution is the only way forward. This is the position of the kingdom under the leadership of His Majesty King Abdullah II. Based on this belief, we see that this conference is an opportunity that should not be wasted to put the political solution on the right track. This requires a cessation of combat and reaching a purely Syrian accord to fulfill a political settlement through the full implementation of the provisions and outcomes contained in the Geneva I Declaration.
Later in Montreux, international mediator Lakhdar Brahimi announced that both of Syria's warring sides are prepared to discuss improving access for aid supplies, prisoner swaps, and local ceasefires. Brahimi was addressing a final news conference after international peace talks on Syria. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the rival Syrian delegation said they would sit down for direct talks on Friday. He said the sides should start with confidence-building measures, and we get more on the deliberations in Switzerland in this report.
In their first meeting at the UN Peace Conference, Syria's government and opposition angrily spelled out their hostility. World powers have also offered sharply divergent views on forcing out Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad during the talks in Switzerland. Opposition leader Ahmed Jarba accused the president of war crimes and demanded the Syrian government delegation immediately sign up to an international plan for handing over power. Jarba said any talk of Assad staying in power in any form will be a derailment of Geneva I path. Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim insisted Assad would not bow to outside demands. He blasted what he called terrorist rebel atrocities supported by Arab and Western states who backed the opposition.
No one in the world, Mr. Kerry, no one in the world has the right to give or take legitimacy to a president or government or constitution or law or anything in Syria except for the Syrians themselves. This is their right and their constitutional right, and what will be agreed to here, whatever is, should be put to a popular referendum. We are here to present what the people want and not to decide their fate.
Co-sponsors of the conference, the United States and Russia, also revealed their differences over Assad.
Mutual consent, which is what has brought us here, for a transition government means that government cannot be formed with someone that is objected to by one side or the other. That means that Bashar al-Assad will not be part of that transition government. There is no way possible in the imagination that the man who has led the brutal response to his own people could regain the legitimacy to govern.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov cautioned against outsiders meddling in Syria's affairs. Saudi Arabia called for Iran and its Lebanese ally Hezbollah to withdraw forces from Syria. Iran, locked in a sectarian confrontation across the region, was absent, shunned by the opposition in the West for rejecting calls for a transitional government. Its president said Tehran's exclusion meant talks were unlikely to succeed. UN officials hoped the meeting at Montreux on Lake Geneva, in which sides made formal presentations, will lead to negotiations in Geneva from Friday. In his opening speech, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called for immediate access for humanitarian aid convoys to areas under siege. Today's talks reflect mounting global concern that a war which has killed over 100,000 and left millions homeless is spilling beyond Syria and fueling sectarian militancy abroad. The conference has raised no great expectations, with little sign that any party was ready to make any concessions. Farah Ajlouni for the News at 10.
The opening day of Syrian peace talks saw new government gains on the ground. Fighting continued between government forces in the northern city of Aleppo and its suburbs. But the government said Aleppo International Airport reopened after a year's closure, calling it a military victory. Syrian state television reported that a passenger flight carrying a media delegation from Damascus landed this morning in Aleppo. It said the army controlled the entire area around the airport after fighting last week. Rebels have held roughly half of Aleppo since storming into the city in mid-2012, holding off a government counteroffensive and consolidating their control over rural areas and the northern border with Turkey. Around Damascus, government artillery hit villages and rebel clashed with the army in the neighborhood of Jubar on the northeast fringe of the capital. Activists also reported clashes in Hama and the southern province of Dir'a. Secretary General of Amnesty International Salil Shetty said Europe should accept more Syrian refugees. Speaking on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Shetty said European Union leaders say they cannot do anything about refugees, which he called ridiculous.
So the third big challenge that we are highlighting is the issue of refugees, because we have more than 2.3 million people who've been out of the country itself, and 97% of them have been absorbed by the 5 neighboring countries. I've just come from Brussels myself. European leaders have pledged only to take 14,000 people into Europe, of which 11,000 are coming from Germany. So this is, really atrocious. You cannot, as some of the richest countries in the world, you cannot stand up to the Arab leaders and to Syria saying, let's find a solution, but you're not contributing to that solution. On the privacy issue.
Here at home, Lower House Speaker Atef Taraune discussed with Vice President of the German Parliament, the Bundestag, Claudia Roth, Middle East issues, including the Syrian conflict and its repercussions on Jordan. Taraune and Roth also discussed ties mainly in parliamentary and economic fields. Taraune spoke about the humanitarian consequences of the Syrian crisis on Jordan, which outweighed the kingdom's resources. Jordanian border guards early today thwarted an attempt to smuggle weapons, explosives, and drugs from Syria into the kingdom. A source at the Armed Forces General Command said 5 suspects were arrested, including one who was injured during a clash with border guards. It said the armed forces would not tolerate any attempt to breach the kingdom's security and would hit hard at anyone trying to harm the country or intimidate its citizens. Jordan and Saudi Arabia signed a nuclear energy cooperation agreement, NCA. The deal was signed by Chairman of the Jordan Atomic Energy Commission, Khalid, and the President of the Saudi King Abdullah City for Atomic and Renewable Energy, Hisham Yamani. The agreement entails cooperation between the two countries in various fields of nuclear energy, mainly in conducting basic and applied peaceful research related to nuclear power. Tuqan said in a statement that the signing of the agreement constitutes a new milestone in the relations and cooperation between the two kingdoms. An Israeli airstrike left 2 Palestinians dead in the Gaza Strip. A rocket hit a car in the town of Beit Hanun in northern Gaza, instantly killing the 2 men who belonged to the Islamic Jihad armed faction. The Israeli military blamed one of them for firing rockets across the border during former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's funeral last week. An airstrike on Sunday wounded a Gaza man linked by Israel to other rockets launched last week. Representing His Majesty the King, Minister of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Nasser Joudeh and Minister of Planning and International Cooperation Ibrahim Saif will join the World Economic Forum, which opened in Davos today. The gathering of world leaders and figures and top economists will continue until the 25th of this month. The outlook for global growth topped the agenda as the annual meeting got into full swing. This report has the details.
The mood's lighter this year at Davos. There's a promising outlook on global growth. A PwC survey shows 44% of business leaders see the economy picking up this year, up from 18% the year before, though there's still a way to go for the world's financial system. John Lipsky is a former IMF executive turned foreign policy expert at Johns Hopkins.
It's not performing adequately, especially true in the Eurozone, where the recapitalization and cleaning of bank balance sheets remains incomplete, and more action is needed.
There's talk that old world developed economies, the US, Britain, Germany and Japan, will be the new locomotives of growth, eclipsing Brazil and other emerging markets as the boom in commodities, the so-called commodities supercycle that has so boosted their economies, splutters to a halt. Stephen Viting of Citi.
These markets, which are again in many cases external borrowers now with current account deficits, these are markets that are more vulnerable towards savings outflows, particularly portfolio outflows from international investors.
And government debt should still have its place at the top table of global concerns, according to Stephen Pagliuca of Bain Capital.
If we keep borrowing and we keep building up, bigger and bigger deficits for the future generations to pay back, at some point that's going to hurt us. And it's going to be great until it isn't. The situation in Greece, one day you're sipping ouzo on the beach, the next day there's a financial crisis.
Sure. And though growth might be on the upturn, one of the biggest Davos concerns of them all is unemployment, reportedly up 5 million last year, meaning over 200 million people around the world have no job.
The European Union threatened to take action against Ukraine over its handling of anti-government protests. European Commission President José Manuel Barroso said the EU was shocked by the death of 3 people during violent clashes in Kiev. He said the bloc deplored the use of force and called on all sides to immediately halt violence. During violence in Kiev, a massive winter storm pounded the northeast of the United States. The snowstorm caused flight cancellations, closing of schools and government offices, and left millions with travel plans pending further notice. The nation's capital was at a standstill as heavy snow and strong winds continued to wreak havoc, with commuters struggling to reach their homes in blizzard-like conditions. Federal workers were advised to stay home with the general public and to stay off roads. Feminine silhouettes were unveiled at Lebanese designer Elisab's couture collection fashion show in Paris. Entitled Promise of Spring, the Spring-Summer 2014 collection featured no trousers but only dresses, most of them long. The colors were inspired by blooming flowers using light fabrics such as tulle and organza and crystals delicately embroidered to reflect light on the long trains. Saab's gowns have been regulars on the red carpet since 2002 after Halle Berry accepted an Academy Award wearing his burgundy gown with a full skirt and see-through top. And we start with NBA action. The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Portland Trail Blazers 105-97 with an epic performance by Kevin Durant, who took the lead with 46 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Forward LaMarcus Aldridge paced Portland with 29 points and 16 rebounds. With the win, the Thunder take the lead in the Northwest Division from the Blazers, who have lost 2 games in a row. From basketball, we move to tennis and the Australia Open. Roger Federer weathered a belated challenge from a From sunny Australia to freezing Russia and the 2014 Winter Olympics. Security was tight in Sochi as letters in Russian making a terrorist threat ahead of the Sochi Games were sent to Olympic committees of at least 5 countries. Despite the assurances, the letters to committees in Italy, Hungary, Germany, Slovenia, and Slovakia briefly caused alarm and underlined nervousness over security at the $50 billion event. Sochi residents hope that tight security in the city will help prevent terrorist attacks. And finally, cold and cloudy tonight with southwesterly light to moderate winds. Tomorrow, a drop in temperature is expected, but it will remain 3 to 4 degrees above average for this time of year. Overall, it'll be chilly in most parts of the country and fair in the Jordan Valley, with a slight chance for scattered showers in the early morning hours in the northern regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a cool night and warm tomorrow, with high clouds, northerly moderate winds, and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. Jordan urges world powers to help all Syrian parties to reach a political solution as the only way to end the conflict. International envoy Lakhdar Brahimi announces that the warring sides in Syria are prepared to discuss access for aid supplies, prisoner swaps, and local ceasefires. And the European Union threatens to take action against Ukraine over its handling of anti-government protests. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.